So this is a whirlwind tour between the difference between hopping, skipping and jumping as mechanisms to change your career and your current job role. So as we think about changing employment, it's intrinsically stressful. It's more stressful for some people than others. There are certain individuals that enjoy it more than others. It's stressful based on the situation you find yourself in. If you have key responsibilities, or you're at a stage in your career where you are more vulnerable to unemployment, or a stage of your life, if you are currently under some sort of financial stress or pressure, those can all create more stress for you than normal. It is useful, though, sometimes to think about upsides and downsides. Certainly, there have been a number of occasions in my career when I have thought that I was close to being broke, and therefore put a great deal of pressure on myself around getting the next job role. And 8 or 9 months later, finally landed a job role and realized that 8 or 9 months earlier I wasn't quite as broke as I thought I was at the time. So make sure that your obsession with what's happening today doesn't blind you to the realities of how far you can go and put more pressure on you than you need to feel. Changing employment is necessary. Broadening your skill and experience base is foundational to your career. If we're going to build out a career in any particular area, then having a breadth of understanding is an important part of that, and will make you more employable and make your sharpen your skills and attitudes. And likely changing job roles is going to happen more often. The pace of change seems to ever accelerate. If we just take the simple technology space, where technology doubles in power pretty much every 18 months or so, and has done for, I guess, the whole of my career. If we take a 10-year time horizon on that, it means it will be 64 times more powerful. But if you extend that doubling every 18 months out over a 30-year time horizon, that makes it 524,288 times more powerful, which is a quite extraordinary number. Now, as I look back on my career, that is probably true of the power of systems, given my first ever job role. Mainframes were things that organizations, certainly the size of organization I was in, broadly leased time on because they couldn't even afford their own computers. I had the first ever portable computer in my first job role. Had a tiny little 7-inch, 5-inch square green screen. I was insanely proud of it. I used to carry it around, even though it actually used to hurt my shoulder to lug it around the place. All of which is to say that we need to get better at being able to change smoothly from one role to a different role, and have a coherent plan for how our career is going to play out and move forward. I think there are broadly 3 styles of job change, and I'm not going to apologize for this. As I've got older, I don't know if I'm more skeptical, wiser, what the appropriate descriptor is, but I do think, when I was a young man, I had a perspective that organizations were looking for the absolutely best person for the role, and Therefore, if you could differentiate yourself by adding incremental things onto your resume that they didn't even know they needed, this would make you a more perfect employee, and therefore they'd be more likely to hire you. And I'm not entirely sure life is like that anymore. It seems to me that the recruitment industry is intrinsically uncertain. So, most recruiters don't have, highly, I don't know what the word is, secure job positions. And so mostly what they're looking for is candidates who don't rock the boat. Candidates that when they get interviewed will meet the requirements. Now, I would differentiate here between average recruiters looking for jobs and headhunters looking for disruptors or someone to transform an organization. So I think, at the very highest level, if you're the kind of individual that a headhunter would ring and say, I need you because you're the perfect guy to do XYZ role, then I think this doesn't really apply to you. But if you're like most of us, and I have occasionally been rung by headhunters, but mostly we've agreed I'm not the right person for the role. But mostly I've been looking for another more interesting job than the one that I have today. Given that recruitment is not the most secure of roles, I have a view that mostly what they're looking to do is to mitigate risk. And therefore, the more we can fit into the box that they are looking to put a candidate in, the more likely it is that we're going to be successful. So my 3 levels look a little like this. Hoppers are moving from a current role in a current organization to a new role in the same organization. They are hopping sideways. It is a small sideways movement. There might be a little bit broadening of scope, but you're certainly not jumping to a whole new level. This, it seems to me, is the least risk appointment. Doesn't mean it's the best appointment, doesn't mean they'll get the best candidate, but it is the least risk for the people who are interviewing and looking to place someone. A skip, by definition, is a movement up in the same organization. So from a current role within an organization that knows you to a new role with a broader scope. It also would be a skip across to a new role in a new organization, which is the same title as the current role the individual holds. So whatever that current role might be. So typically, this is warehouse manager in one organization to warehouse manager in another organization, kind of a gig. Skippers are, for the recruiters, intrinsically more risky than hoppers. Sometimes they have to do it because they don't have anybody at the same level currently available, but they're intrinsically more risky, but less risky than jumpers. Jumpers are looking to jump across to a new role they haven't done before in a new organization, a movement up and across. And jumping is intrinsically more difficult because all of the people who are looking to hire the individual have to take a risk and put the person forward and say this is the right person for the role, and therefore live with the consequences. If you're listening to this video, you're probably by definition a jumper. If you've changed countries, and I emigrated to Canada many years ago, but if you've changed countries or you're looking to break into a new career area or you're looking to do something completely different, you are by definition a jumper. If you're a jumper, you have to believe in yourself. We have to be realistic about the extra effort we have to put in. Right? The game is not rigged. It is simply the natural risk aversion of employees who don't want to get fired for making the wrong decision. So believe in yourself, believe it can be possible, and put yourself in the best possible light. But remember, we need to outperform hoppers and skippers. We need to find ways to de-risk the decision so that the organization selects you over and above hoppers and skippers. And I circle back to, and we don't do that by throwing a whole bunch of extra stuff on our resume and think that that will make us successful. Often what that does is make us too complicated. We need to provide reassurance that this is a role that we can do, and we believe we will deliver more value to the organization than other individuals. So what are the actions? Think of 2 things you can do to be a more effective jumper, because that's where the big money is. Incorporate this in your career development competence assessment. So create a list of the competencies that you have that you can deploy that make you a low risk selection, and then apply focus and diligence to building your career. Ironically, I now spend more effort building my career as I reach the end of it than I ever did as a young man, when perhaps I could have changed the arc of my career. Not that I want to have had a different career, but I certainly put more effort into it now than I did back then. And remember, it's always about taking the next step. What got you here, as Marshall Goldsmith very memorably said, won't get you there. Thank you for listening to this short video. If you'd like to connect with me on LinkedIn, my LinkedIn address at the bottom. If you're going to connect with me, and I think this is an important skill if you are going to build your network and grow your careers, put a handy dandy little note up that explains why I should connect with you. And not so much what I can do for you, but a little more on what you can do for me, which I think is always a good start in building a new connection with an individual. Thank you for listening to this, and I hope you found something interesting and useful here.